Hi, this is a short video to kind of demonstrate how I do my grades in my grade book for the classes that I teach at Fort Hays. So what I did is I have a grade book here, and I've been doing this for a number of years. This happens to be version 3. So this version is a little different. It does a couple things. Well, first off, it works off a rubric. So I have a rubric set up for my class. This is data and assessment. So every module has a rubric, so you can kind of see this is how this is the parts of the module. These are the indicators, and these are the scores. So I take these requirements, or these tasks, or whatever you call these descriptors, and I add them to my gradebook up here. So you can see this is module 7, and here are my indicators. And you can see the standards are there, the total points, points possible, and some notes. And then you can also see the values, and I use data validation, so I can just select the points that each student gets. So that's the first part that I do. So I go through and I score all my students' modules off their community. Like this is module 7, so that's what I'm on. So you can see I give feedback, and then I score them and I read them and provide feedback, and I add the scores to my gradebook. Now the thing that's different about this, and in the past I'd use Autocrat to send emails and rubrics off a template, but that was very unreliable and didn't work very good. So what I did is I basically developed this gradebook with some coding. So it's based off their email. So in this case, I'm gonna be the instructor, and I'm using my school email address, and I'm also gonna be the student. This is my student. So my students' names would be here, and the email address would be here. Since I'm demonstrating this, I'm going to pretend that I'm the student. So this is my student email address. You can see it's my .mail one. So it's right there. And I'm going to use that in conjunction with my instructor email, which in this case, I'm using my school district email. In real life, when I'm doing this for my students at Fort Hays, this is my .mail account, and this is my student's email address in case of doing it actually for classes. So what I do is I go through and I score all this off the drop-down menus. Then what I do is I come in here to Tools, and I go to Script Editor. And what I did is I developed this script that'll actually send emails. And it took some time, and I had to work with some people at our school, and also did a lot of research on the internet. But what it does, it works off the active sheet. So in this case, this is the active sheet right here. And then, so what it does is it works on the active sheet, and it looks for the first row of data, which is row 2, and the last row is 27. So this is tellable based on how many kids are in my class. And then it looks for the first row and the last row. And then it starts to put together the email address. And I'll go back and I'll explain that in a minute, kind of how that works. But then I send me, like, here's email addresses, there's the email sent, and that actually will write into this column right here that says email sent. So it looks something like this, like here's module 6, so you can see these emails are all sent because it says module sent, email sent. So I use this coding to then make this, and the only change I make every time I send emails is I adjust the subject line. So this is module 7 I'm going to send, so I change this to module 7. And now when I send emails, it'll come out, it'll say module 7 scores in the subject line. And you can actually put any message in here you want to. So going back to the gradebook, so what I did is then I used all this data to construct a email message, and here's what that email message looks like. So it would say, hello one in this case is the student number, but it'd be hello Ryan. And then it talks about, it thanks them for submitting the module. Then it actually gives their score. So the module submitted on time is 10 points. It talks about each part, and that's based off how they scored. And it fills it all out. And then it comes down here to actually have a note, and I said, good job on your spreadsheet. And it gives your overall score, and then I sign it. So I constructed this using a formula. This is kind of what the formula looks like to do all that work. It's right there. So I'll close all this back down. And so now let's go through and let's actually send out these emails, pretend that they've actually been graded. So to just recall, this is going to send an email, It's going to send it to me as a teacher, as the instructor. In this case, I'm using my school email account. When I do this for real life, I use my forthayes.mail account. It's going to send an email to me as the instructor. It's going to send an email to the student with their forthayes.mail account. So let's go ahead and do it. So all I got to do to make this work is I can save it. And then I hit play. And we'll go back over here real quick. And it says it needs to review permissions, which is fine. It's going to do that. It does it one time on every. So this is a copy of my spreadsheet. It asked me to do that. So now after I do this, it'll work. So now if I go back to the sheet here, you'll see it's filling out email sent. If I go to my account as a student, so I'm getting the emails. Here's my teacher. You can see I'm getting them there. And here's what the emails to my students would look like. And I was intentional in how I formatted this because I really wanted it to fit on the screen nicely, and I wanted it to fit on a phone nicely. So I really was working with accessibility here to try to make sure it fits on the screen. So another cool feature about this is what I do is, let's say, for example, Module 6. I had a student who let's say this student here or one of these students, I made a mistake on their grade. Like, for example, this line right here. Let's say this line was a mistake. And this really wasn't late. So I changed the score to 10. I modify the note and say, okay, it was posted actually on time. And I made an error. So I want to resend this email because the grade has changed. So all I have to do is I have to take out the email sent, delete it, and go back to my tools and my script editor. And go back to my script editor. And change this to Module 6. Update. Rubric updated. Update rubric scores. Or whatever I want to call it. Hit play. If I go back to my gradebook, notice how it filled that in with email sent. So now if I come back here to my email, see, I get an updated email with an updated note. So that's how I do the my gradebook with email send and data validation and rubrics. Hope you enjoyed it.